like music, and I like musical instruments. I didn't have a piano, although we briefly had a piano in my house. And I liked playing that, and in school they kind of assigned me the clarinet because my brother had a clarinet, and he'd previously gone to the same school. And I just wasn't into it, you know, playing the third or second note of a chord. And the only time you could hear the chord, it's when everybody was together in the school band. And, I mean, it was okay, but it was not my idea of musical fulfillment. And my brother actually got a guitar and started taking lessons. And my brother's a real smart guy, and he could learn anything instantly. And he did, and kind of got bored with it. And then I said, hey, you know, I'd like to try that. And before I knew it, that was my thing. And so we rented the guitar for about a year. And it was acoustic, a Gibson acoustic guitar. And got to the point where I had mowed enough people's lawns to have a Fender single pickup guitar called a Music Master. And the guitar I still play today is called a Music Man, so maybe there's some kind of subliminal connection there, subconscious thing, I don't know. Yeah, I did have lessons. I still remember my first lesson. It's kind of like a hillbilly thing, rockabilly thing. Probably the Beatles, because I remember wanting to do. First recognizable tune was probably if I didn't play it that way. Something like that. Actually, it probably sounded like this when I did. I don't know. I can't remember. It's a long time ago. And then after that, my big accomplishment was going. Beach Boys. But discovering this little boogie woogie or power chord thing or surfing thing, whatever it was that sort of unlocked the universe. I said, I get it now. It doesn't take much. It's just. There's songs all coming out of. So basically, if you could do this. You could play all kinds of tunes, you know. And a lot of Beatles stuff was rock and roll. That's one of the reasons I liked it. And like a typical kid, you know, we would like talk about the latest Beatle. And I was over at a friend's house listening to it, and we were like agreeing. Yeah, there's always got to be a few bad songs on the album. You know, songs like, whatever ballad was on there. We were like, oh no way, because I was like an 11-year-old kid, and it was just total energy stuff was the only thing that appealed to me. But the Rolling Stone stuff. So I borrowed a fuzz tone for them. But fuzz tone didn't sound exactly like that. It sounded really, really weird. The Dregs, or the Dixie Dregs, started back in, I'm thinking now, maybe 1970. I think 1970 was our first gig. And it was actually a two-person band, Andy West and myself. We did kind of experimental music. We had tape loops of things, and I played some keyboard, and Andy played bass. And between songs, he would be talking, and then I would run around to the back where we had a reel-to-reel tape recorder and another reel-to-reel tape recorder about 10 feet away with a take-up reel for that tape. So one side was recording, and then 10 feet away, the other tape player was playing it back. And I had that looped into a mixer. So as he was talking, I was feeding back what he had said about 10 seconds before, and kept layering and layering and adding on top of that, using sound on sound. And a lot of people thought we were stark, raving, insane lunatics. I remember a concert we did where one guy just totally freaked out. He said it was the weirdest thing he ever saw. Because we had made some electronic music pieces using the most primitive synthesizers around that time. It was even before there were organized patched bass synthesizers that I could get my hands on. So we were using white noise generators, ring modulators, and cutting and editing tape to make this electronic music. Anyway, we added a drummer and became a three-piece band. We recorded a couple years later some demos, but our first actual album was 1975 at the University of Miami. I was graduating there, and every graduating senior got some studio time. They were just building the studio, so I brought the band in, and we played. You know, the guitar was in the elevator shaft because there was no isolation rooms or anything. It was really a live stage that they happened to be putting a 24-track in. We recorded our album just really quick, and I'd saved up some money, and we pressed some copies, and that became our demo. You know, was, hey, here's our album. We had it shrink wrapped, and when we gave it to the record companies, often they would send it back with the shrink wrapping unmolested, saying how they didn't think it was the right kind of music for them. You know, and I'm going, whoa, they got some advanced technology at these record labels. And so I began a collage on my rented apartment. It wasn't a beautiful apartment, so I started putting these rejection letters on the wall, and pretty soon I'd covered a whole wall. And at that point I realized nobody had heard this stuff. The ones that were polite enough to send it back unopened, also with a letter saying that they had listened to it, those were just the result of having a committee of people designed to take stuff and say no. And we realized we're going to have to get out and play more. So we started playing around the country, anywhere we could get to, anywhere we could get gas money. And when we got heard by enough people, there was this confluence of energy. The guys from Allman Brothers and Phil Walden and a couple other musicians all heard us at the same place in Nashville at the same night. And suddenly we had a deal. Now, the instant we had an offer for a record deal, some of those other labels that said that it was the wrong kind of music were interested. It was just, you know, it's just human nature at its finest, the record experience. Anyway, we went through it. We did 6 albums, then broke up, and I did solo albums in the 80s, and then played with Kansas in the late 80s. And all along the way, we occasionally got together with the Dregs and did some projects. And I'd say in the 90s we did several albums and maybe 3 or 4 different tours, just because we like playing together and getting together. And it's not the kind of thing that could financially support people that have families, but it is a great music group. The personalities of everybody are really interesting and entertaining to hang around with, especially for a limited time. We have some. Have you seen the comedian Richard Lewis? He's a kind of a neurotic. He's got this whole neurotic Jewish humor thing, and our keyboard player is exactly like him, and he's a constant source of entertainment. We have the violinist from Mahavishnu Orchestra, Jerry Goodman, who I've enjoyed seeing with Mahavishnu back in the days that they were touring. Rod Morgenstein on drums is a very musical guy, and Dave LaRue, who also plays in my trio, is playing bass, and the keyboard player, T. Lavitz. Very natural soloist. He just totally close his eyes and go. So I just love playing with the guys, and people, the audiences still come to the shows. They still support us. I don't know where they come from, but they're still out there. I know they're downloading a lot of songs, too. With the Dregs, we do a lot of, intense jazz rock stuff, but we also do some more laid-back tunes. One of my favorite is Hereafter. When I record it, I use a 12-string guitar, so when I do the intro, try to get as many strings ringing as possible. So I kind of made up some voicings that will allow some, like I used the open B string. It gives it a more broad range of octaves to kind of simulate what I had going with the 12-string. After the intro, there's parts that are kind of designed for keyboard that I play on guitar, like in the same vein, parts of Night Meets Light are also they work out really well for keyboard, or a little bit of a stretch for guitar, and they're often arpeggiated like. One of my favorite parts of Night Meets Light also is a section where the harmonics take the melody, and we have the bass and drums doing the offbeat accents, and then I basically play them all because I wrote this little part on guitar, and it's a hard section to play, but it sounds really neat when everybody's together. Those kind of really melodic things are a lot of fun for me to play, and some of the stuff that's fun to play just doesn't sound good with just guitar because it's me, it's me holding a note, but it's the feel of the band surrounding you, and giving you the freedom to solo over it. And like the solo in Night Meets Light or Hereafter is a good example of that, where I can just sit there and hold a note and get some nice feedback or some nice sustain from it, and yeah, just the freedom to improvise. That's one of my favorite things about Deep Purple, too. Well, my initial reaction was, I don't know about this. This could be, I thought the odds were, and I play the odds a lot when I assess the future. I thought the odds were that it was not going to be a great musical move for me. And so both they and I didn't know what it would bring. And so we ended up agreeing to do 4 shows, short, like a week space, including rehearsals and everything. So I went and met the guys and was really surprised at how, as soon as we started playing, John Lord I was improvising. We were just jamming. In fact, that's the first thing we did, was just start to jam. John Lord could hear what I was playing and add to it, and that really surprised me and pleased me. And the other guys were just really confident and relaxed, and the time was no problem. It was just like sitting in a big, easy chair. It was just the easiest thing in the world to just play with them. Then, my only fear then became the singer. Well, he's a rock and roll singer. This could be like, just some medieval torture thing. But instead, we went on stage. I think a day after I met them, I was on stage in this huge Coliseum. And Ian puts his arm around me and said, "Come on up to the stage," because I was hanging back, just kind of like, "I'll be in the shadows here if you need me," And so he just goes, "Come on up," Basically, what he's telling me is he wants to be part of the band instead of have the band be behind him. And I just love that approach. And I love Ian's humor, his double entendre lyrics, everything that he comes up with. I mean, I find some great amusement with. And Roger was the first guy I met. And Roger's the total intelligent, super eclectic listener. He was the guy, I think, that suggested to the band that they look into getting somebody really different from Richie, meaning me. And I came to the conclusion that they were all in the band. They were all picked to be in the band because they were good. They were really good. The band's been through a lot of different versions over the years. And here we were, 4 out of 5 of them were from the Smoke and the Water days, but they kept being in the band because they were really right for it. To my surprise, it was working out really well. And I was luckily in a position where I didn't have to do anything, I was making a living doing my own thing. And, as much as I wanted to, or I could do solo shows or go back to, doing classical guitar gigs or whatever. There was a lot of possibilities. But suddenly this just seemed like actually a great opportunity to have fun playing. And that's something that I sort of, I haven't been having as much of sometimes. When I do these classical guitar gigs, it's like such an intense thing. The sound's perfect. Any breath that's wrong, is obvious to the whole seated theater full of people. And I don't know, it's really joyful and relaxing and fun to play with Deep Purple. Something I've always wanted to do. Playing with John Lord makes me, it's a challenge. It's great because one of the things we do every night is John will just start playing chords. And it's before one of several tunes that we'll have this. He'll start playing chords, and at some point, there's no telling exactly when. I'm just supposed to know and feel when I should come in. And then I do. And as I start playing a melody, he plays different chords according to what he thinks I'm going to hit next. And I never know if it's going to be a relative chord or if it's going to be a key change chord. And so we both really have to use mental telepathy and use our ears. Because the instant he hits that chord, I've got to play a note that fits. And not only note that fits, but continue it with the melody. It's that kind of thing. I love doing that. It's just, it's sort of the musician equivalent of living on the edge. You're really taking a chance. It sounds like something that's planned out to the people in the audience, which is great. I don't really care if they think it's planned out or not, but just the fact that we're doing it and it's spontaneous and it's really kind of sticking your neck out. I just love that. And John is so good at that. He can tell. Even sometimes I can even imply where I'm going with the melody, and he'll get it. Very few keyboard players I've ever played with in the jazz arena can think that far ahead. He's really, really special talent. Well, his organ sound, it's something I always loved about Deep Purple. Just heavy B3, and a lot of those recordings he did with playing through a guitar amp, of course, really appealed to me because it's, you know, it's like power chords or something. So I use a little bit different amp as a result of that. That's why I use the 5150. It seems to have a better mix with his organ than the amps that I use with Steve Morse Band or Dregs, which are regular Marshalls. And I don't always feel a need to cut through the organ. I like to blend with the organ a lot. But I've never been out front for one of our shows, so I can't say exactly how it is. I know how it is in the studio when we play live and we listen back. Because we try to have sounds that are compatible, but you know, let him have a little bit more mid-range with the organ and me have a little bit more of a spread, which I normally don't do. But with Deep Purple, I have more low and high than I normally would. Sometimes we do, you know, some fast riffs. We do several songs in G, a lot of songs in G. One of that's Mary Long, and also in G, this one. Speaking is just straight up. Trying to think some other stuff that I can do on this guitar. That, well, oh yeah, one of the ones that is I love to play live. This is an interesting anecdote. I don't know if it's funny. It wasn't funny to me at the time, but it gets funnier as time goes on. We were playing in Kiev, Ukraine, part of the former USSR, and we were getting there on a series of airliners. One was an old chartered Aeroflot, a jet, looked kind of like a 727. And the crew and the equipment were all supposed to go in there. Well, to start with, the baggage door of the plane was not big enough to put the equipment in with the cases. So they started taking we were coming from maybe Moscow the day before. So in Moscow, they're taking the cases apart and just, cases that would have little delays and pedals and chords and stuff. Now, they're just chords being thrown into this airliner, like in seats and stuff. Delays, amps, guitars, just stuff without cases, being just totally loaded into this ancient, like put out of service because it's not good enough to keep in service airliner. Then the crew saw the plane, and almost every one of them said, "No, I'm not getting in that thing," because there was some of the tires, you could see the cord on them, and they were just convinced that they were gonna die if they got on this thing. And they said, "Sorry, this is below standard." Meanwhile, we'd already gone on another plane, and we were in Kiev, and the crew ended up not going on the plane. The plane goes to Kiev. A bunch of Ukrainians unload it, bring it to the gig. The gig is an outdoor stadium, okay? It was like late summer, and it's just a cold front has just gone through, and it's gotten really cold and windy. The stage is about 200 feet across, and I just got suddenly picked up from the hotel room. "You need to come down to the gig right away." "Why? What's wrong?" I get there. None of my crew is there. All my equipment is scattered in pieces across a 200-foot stage along with everything else. There's people milling around. No one speaks English. I have a T-shirt on and a thin jacket, and it's starting to snow. There's nobody to set up my stuff. There's no power. It's, I have 110 volt stuff. They have 240 volt. There's no transformers. There's nothing. And people the doors are opening. There's people coming in and say, people in broken English saying, "Steve, why are you setting up your equipment?" And I'm going, "I don't know." But because since the crew didn't get on the plane and they just blew it off, they said, "There's no way." So we did the gig anyway, and I had to figure out a way to hook everything up. Well, it took me until 5 minutes before the show to get enough adapters and cords and to find all the stuff, just to put it together. Because I have a bunch of pedals in a rack and 6 cabinets, and I was like, "Oh, give me it with this," and just literally setting it up. And then 5 minutes before the show, I'm totally, completely frozen, and we're supposed to play. And there's movie cameras all around, strategically, like they're going to make bootleg things of this or whatever. And I'm just going, God, this just couldn't be any worse. I couldn't even move my fingers. They were just so frozen. So one of the crew that did come was there with, it went and got some hot water in a metal thing, and I just put my hands around the hot water, and it started to burn my fingers, but I couldn't feel it. So when the pain arrived, getting through the frozen fingers, I said, "Ah!" And then I put a towel around it and kept doing this, trying to warm it up for about, now I had 2 minutes left. Hadn't touched my guitar. My fingers are just starting to get unthawed. And then this guy in Ukrainian starts announcing the band. It was just, welcome to hell. It wasn't funny at the time, but now it seems funnier. The reason I became a professional airline pilot was twofold. One was, it was another childhood dream that I thought that would be a great job that I would enjoy. But the other reason was more of a dark thing that I don't really feel happy about telling the world about it, but I'll try. I just really hated the time of the music business as the way I saw it. I felt like, you know, everybody just wanted a clown, you know, somebody to dress up in a certain way and do these kinds of songs, and the whole emphasis on life seemed to be what, you know, trying to please record companies and MTV, and everybody around me were just behaving like they were marionettes or something controlled by some business. I just lost my appetite for doing that, and I just never wanted to, you know, I wanted to play music just to play music. So when I was a pilot, I fly every day. Flying is part of my life too. But when I was actively seeking employment and got employment as an airline pilot, in my mind it was going to be what I did for the rest of my life, or until I was age 60, when you're forced to retire, so that I could really be free, so that I wouldn't have to face the music business. I always wanted to be in the music, you know, surrounded by music, recording music and playing occasionally with people. But I was very happy to walk away from the music business. Then, after spending a while in another business, I discovered that there's downsides to everything. There's stuff you don't want to do in any kind of job. That's why it's work. That's why they call it work. You know, like in my job, I love playing with the band. I love playing with Purple, but all the other stuff, the traveling, the waiting, the stress of this, oh my God, we got to go through that. If this didn't work out, we got to hurry up and change this. And spending most of your time not playing is what the work is. That's the WORK that I want to get paid for. The music I'll do for free, but every job has its down point. So I learned that and realized that if I put as much effort into music as I did keeping myself organized as an airline pilot, that I could manage it. And so I did. I only had my one boy, my 10-year-old boy. The other two are stepsons. I didn't know them until they were like 6 and 8. But I used to play a song for my little boy, Kevin. Not with that much distortion, but I did acoustic.
That's good.
And he used to love to just dance around, and he'd smile. Every time I played that, he would smile.